So the Osmo Pocket 4P might be the most convenient video camera I've ever used. It's tiny and quick to set up compared to my Nikon mirrorless cameras. It takes stabilized log footage and it is a better shooting experience compared to using your phone. It's also a whole lot smoother and more capable than an action camera like the old GoPros. But there's something a bit confusing to me about the name. The Osmo Pocket 4P, I'm assuming the P stands for Pro. At the moment it feels a bit more like a marketing gimmick, similar to how Apple slaps the Pro moniker on their more expensive products. This is a genuinely capable little camera, which makes it all the more frustrating that DJI calls it the Pro. So let me get my frustrations out first, and then we can talk about why I still reach for it every time I want to make a video. In fact, this video was filmed on the Osmo Pocket 4P. So here's my list of gripes. So right out of the box, the Osmo Pocket 4P does not come with a protective cap for the gimbal, unlike the older models. It does include a soft pouch in the box, but it is nowhere near protective enough for the actual gimbal itself. This is why I ended up buying a separate third-party case for this camera, just so I felt more comfortable carrying it around. Another thing is the small remote control that comes in the vlog combo and that DJI also sells separately. This remote is clearly aimed at answering the competition, but the screen on this little remote is even smaller than the actual touchscreen on the back of the camera, which is already quite fiddly to use to change settings. And even then, I don't think it was designed for that, and it was just mainly used for monitoring, as you can't really change many settings on it. You're a little bit better off just using the DJI Memo app to both monitor and change settings on the camera remotely, although it is also not a perfect experience either. Next thing is the lack of a built-in ND filter. If you want to shoot outside in bright light at 24 or 25 frames per second to get the cinematic motion blur, you're going to need to use an ND filter. Otherwise you'll end up blowing out the highlights and the footage. And this has been the standard practice for many years now. It's a bit disappointing that DJI didn't build this feature into this camera, considering the Pro badge. I think at the very least they could have included an ND filter in the combo. The next one is the D-Log 2, and it's a big one. D-Log 2 is only supported on the main 1-inch sensor of the camera and not on the 3x tele lens. And that's a real shame, because I really like D-Log 2 and its flexibility, especially for shooting high contrast and low light scenes. But switching between the two lenses and switching the two log profiles adds too much friction to the edit, since you end up having to have separate LUTs for both cameras, and you're going to need to find some way to remember which footage was shot with which camera, which ends up being quite a bit of a headache from my experience. So this is why in practice I just stick to the D-Log profile on both the main and the zoom camera instead. There are a few smaller gripes as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the screen itself is quite fiddly to change settings. All of the settings are controlled mostly via touchscreen, and it could be quite fiddly, especially if you're mid-shoot. Another thing is the wireless mic situation. While it does support wireless connections with DJI native mics, if you're using third-party mics, there is no Bluetooth support. So you would need to use a USB-C cable to connect to this camera, which is a little bit of a shame. So at this point, it might sound like I don't really like this camera, and that's not true. Just bear with me here. All of these inconveniences almost stop mattering as long as the footage is good. And the footage is really good, especially if you're using the D-Log and the new D-Log 2 profile. The image quality, the flexibility with the color grading, and the stability of the footage out of the box with such a small gimbal is genuinely impressive. This is the first camera I've been using with a gimbal for video, and it just makes my life a lot easier for both professional work and for shooting my own videos for B-roll. There's also a solid range of shooting modes, including time-lapse, hyperlapse, panorama shooting, and you can even shoot photos with it too. The range of frame rates available is excellent at 4K. Goes all the way from 24 frames per second. As of the date of this video, it also supports up to 240 frames per second with the D-Log profile, which is quite impressive. And what I like the most about this camera is how little friction there actually is between picking up the camera and shooting nice quality footage on the go. Don't have to pack a huge bag of gear like I would with a mirrorless camera setup. Just take this camera and just pop it into my camera bag alongside my regular setup, and it just works great for shooting B-roll. So my final thoughts about this camera. I really wish DJI would add a few more features to make this camera deserving of the actual Pro badge. Like for example, a slightly better, slightly more robust accessory ecosystem, such as a more usable remote and wireless support for non-DJI mics, as well as at least some ND filters included in the box. While I heard the firmware support is pretty good, it would be also nice to have some updates to improve the responsiveness of the touchscreen and maybe slightly better settings management system. And finally, I would love to have the D-Log 2 profile on the 3x lens, but I'm guessing DJI can address these issues in the next version. Maybe the Osmo Pocket 5 will have all of these features. So my honest verdict, the fantastic little camera, but it has its limitations, and I wouldn't say it's a professional tool for everybody. I guess it'd be more of a prosumer camera. But if you're deciding between this one or the regular Osmo Pocket 4, or maybe a new phone, or even the mirrorless cameras, I'd love to know what you're leaning towards. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely read them all. And if you'd like to watch more real-world reviews of gear like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.